Welcome,
Hey,
everybody. Appreciate y'all jumping on board on this early morning. I do want to make a quick announcement to a little bit of a change here. I have decided that I definitely want to record these shows. I want to record them for my own use. I want to record them to be able to go back on. The only thing I can tell you is that I promise you I will never put anybody in an embarrassing situation, and I'm not going to be releasing a ton of content. But I do want these recorded so we can use some clips and stuff to further the name, to further the brand, and everything like that. So if that's a concern for you, please let me know. But it was definitely a switch in ideology there. And At the end of the day, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I don't think we do much of anything besides. I personally would never say anything on here that I wouldn't say in front of somebody or in a public space, anyhow, depending on who my audience was. I want to thank everybody again for coming on board. Our guest host today is Jim Bernasek, and we are talking about advisor pay plans. As I said in the post, there's literally hundreds of different pay plans out there. And of those hundreds of pay plans, there's variations of all of those. It's basically insane the amount of thought that goes into pay plans. And unfortunately, in my opinion, in my history here, the amount of thought that goes into them is not in how can we get the most out of our people, but in how do I make sure my advisors don't work this pay plan, right? I mean, it's brinksmanship, just like in the Cold War. All of a sudden, management develops a new pay plan. The advisors figure out a way to get past it and work it. Then management takes that information and ratchets it up a little bit, and then the advisors figure it out. So it's this brinkmanship. And at the end of the day, I think it's bad for our business. I think it's bad for us. We need pay plans that compensate people for what they do, and probably most importantly, further the goals of the business. If your pay plan doesn't do those two things, I think you're in a world of shit. One thing you have to do whenever you're talking about a pay plan is you have to have data. If you don't have the data, you have no idea. People are going to work you and everything. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted Jim here. He's got the information. He knows it. Plus, he's been on the retail side as well, running 20-something stores. So, Jim, what are your thoughts on pay plans? I think you're a keep it simple sort of guy, but what is your thoughts on that? And then everybody, as usual, we're encouraging some interaction here. You want in? Raise that hand, okay? Go ahead, Jim.
hey, sorry. Good morning, everybody. Well, thanks for having me first off. And Joe, thanks for letting me guest host. These are always great topics, right? The advisor pay plans, because everybody, it doesn't matter. I think there was one post, you could have 1,000 dealers and you got 999 different style pay plans pretty much on how they think that they can be. You are correct. I think data is important, but the key to that data is not just for the management and for the store and who's calculating the pay plans. That data, whatever the pay plan is, that data needs to be readily available for the people that the pay plan encompasses, right? Because if I've always believed in this, that if they can't calculate their pay plan after every ticket they do, after the end of the day, to know where they're pacing on their pay plan and so on, it's a demotivating pay plan, right? You lose people. So to me, that keep it simple, stupid. I always say, don't keep your pay plans less than 4 different metrics, right? If it's anything more than 4, you got them too worried about different areas and so on, and you keep it pretty simple. So
So
I agree.
those four, keep it simple to those four basic metrics. Understand that.
Correct.
But even those 4 metrics can't be convoluted bullshit, right?
Correct.
I mean,
Yes.
those metrics have
Absolutely.
to be easily accessible to the people. And that's the problem. What they call mushroom managers, right? Where they keep everybody in the dark and they don't teach them how to know or how to figure out metrics. They don't do anything with that. And they're empowered managers because they're empowering themselves to control everybody. It's ridiculous with even if simple 4 metrics. If you don't keep your people involved and informed, what do you got?
I agree. So, and here's the biggest thing, the biggest mistake that managers can make, and I hear this all the time, and I say this is either from new managers, weak managers, or just ignorant managers on that side, right? And that could be an encompass of all 3 in one.
By the way,
So,
I've been everyone at any point in time.
But the biggest thing that I always say is whenever I hear the word, hey, pay plan dictates performance, right? That just drives me absolutely crazy because guess what? Yes, it can dictate performance. I agree with that. But the management, the leadership, in a sense, not management, because we hate using that word management, right? But that leadership, they should be the one to dictate performance, not the actual pay plan. So the people that say pay plan dictates performance, that makes me believe they're lazy.
Hey, you know what? Anybody that's been on the show here has heard me say this phrase. It's a function of management. All right. You have a duty, you have a job as a leader to dictate performance. It is your job. It is not the pay plan's job. We can say that at Utopia Motors, right? We can at Shangri-La Motors, we will do that. But at the end of the day, though, Jim, I think it does dictate. I don't say dictate, but it definitely influences behavior and performance. Yes,
100%, yeah.
So how do we get past that?
Well, I think how you get past that is you keep it again simple, right? You allow them to be able to concentrate without thinking with the guest, right? And not having to worry about, is this going to affect this? Is this going to affect this? How do I hide this so that way it doesn't hurt this part of my pay plan, right? Those are we have to make it as easy for the advisor to be able to just flow with the natural things with the guests and the technicians to be able to do that. Because if you don't do that, they're going to think too much and then their mind is going to wander into the negative space. It always does. Unfortunately, it always does.
Oh, Ray Hernandez said, if you have people quitting on commission day, you know your pay plan is no bueno. I'm not a bilingual guy, but I think I know what he meant on that one. Joshua Taylor, I hear it's your birthday today.
Happy birthday, Josh.
Happy birthday, Josh.
40?
Good
You
job,
said
dude. Happy birthday.
40.
40. Wow.
Happy
Congratulations.
40.
Old man.
I'll tell you what, you are in a good spot in life for being 40 years old, my friend. Congratulations and happy birthday to you.
Yeah, I think the only one you're not old. I think the only one you're not older than on this meeting is the MF Titan and probably Joe Chambers.
Fuck, dude. Russell Hill's on this meeting. I don't know where Bob Charbonneau is, but God damn it, there's people older than me, all right,
Yeah.
including the Titan, by the way. Oh, and there's Wendy going, "Hey, it's me." All right, so for a sec, I'm gonna fucking mute your ass. But hey, so Jim, what? Again, we want Service Drive Live to be actionable.
Yep.
Immediate, like you could go Monday morning and do something.
Yep.
What is something that you've done in the pay plans you've created that a guy like Daryl, a guy like me, or Jerry Davis, Zach Perkle, those guys could do tomorrow morning that would have an impact if they were making a pay plan?
Okay, so number one, I always say that the pay plan has to work for what? Both sides, right? So it has to work for the company, and it has to work for the advisor. So number one, what's the number that we base everything off of in our industry? What's that? If the percentage of what? It's gross, right?
Gross.
We base everything off gross. So I pay, and this is where I want to kind of get some take on this, because I know like Kaylee Filio, the parts girl, right? So she's everybody.
She's not on here today because
But everybody wants, and I agree with this. Everybody wants people paid on parts. They should be paid on labor. They should be paid on parts, right? Well, I have a different view. I base every pay plan that I start with based off your straight labor gross. So that's your number one key deal, straight labor gross. Okay. And the reason being is because I can then monitor, and we say, I'll just use a number, for example, if the number is 13% of gross is what our benchmark is for our service department, right? In total compensation.
I just saw your picture.
I might start that at 8% of gross, and then you get 3 more different criteria that they can do to benefit their pay plan, right? So it could go all the way up to 13%. So that individual advisor always knows that they get 13% of whatever they sell based on, they get 8% normally, and then on the other 3 metrics that they could hit. And those metrics can be changeable. You never want metrics to be standardized in there, because you always want that moving deal to be able to benefit what the company needs that to go on. So I base it off of gross, then another percent of gross, another percent of gross, another percent of gross to hit up to 13%.
Right.
So
I
yeah,
gotta,
those
I
4
gotta
metrics.
I've always been of the belief that I want, you know what, you sell parts as well. So
Correct.
why would you start it off with labor? I'm curious on that.
Well, because of the two things that you want to be able to monitor and you want to stay within your guideline of your pay plan, right? And so meaning that we know that our compensation can only be 13% of gross. So I allow up to 13% of that gross, right? Maybe depending on if I want to be a really, out there store, make sure that I'm compensating higher, then it's going to be, maybe you could do 13 and a half, 14, just using that number. So I base it. Now for the part side, I do pay them off of parts, but how I pay them off of parts is I tie that into their parts to labor ratio. That's where they can get an extra 1.5% bonus if their parts to labor ratio is at, let's call it an independent, a domestic store might be 1-to-1, right? I might need a dollar for dollar, and you could unlock another 1.5% of your service gross to get to that, because then that will keep them concentrating and motivated to put those parts on there to be able to get that. Right now, an import store, maybe it's 85%, it's 85 cents on the dollar. So they're always still concentrating on that part because they're being able to unlock a big portion of their pay plan by being at 1.5% extra of that gross that they're going to get. Does that make sense?
It does. I'm wrapping my head around it. First, I've never seen parts to labor ratio thrown in an advisor pay plan. So I'm trying to figure that one out. I like it. I'm seeing the possibilities of that, because my first instinct is, okay, well, now you control discount, right? And you control on the parts side, you control both the labor and the parts, right? If you do that, if you base it on parts of labor. I wonder if it would, I wonder if it would confuse things. I don't know. My pay plan is for my advisor. I pay off of both. All right. I just do. And my dealer group made the decision a long time ago to pay off of sales. All right.
Yeah.
Which, whatever. It's whether you pay off of sales or gross, you adjust a percentage, it's the same fucking thing. But we pay equally off of parts and labor, but I'm thinking your margin of gross is different, so maybe you're onto something. I don't know.
Correct. And if you pay them off a gross, their margin is going to be higher, right?
Yes.
So they always think a little bit more, right? They like a better percentage, because what does advisor come in and always say, hey, I want 10% of this or whatever it is that, right? If you might pay at a big store, depending on the size of the store and how many tickets they're writing, you might pay 3% of their sales, right? Or 2% of their sales, and then unlock some bonuses, where you're going to pay them a standard 8% of their labor gross, which makes them more enticed, because they're like, okay, I got some game in this, right? I got some involvement in this 8, and I can get all the way up to 13% of what that is. And I've used that same pay plan, to be honest with you. I've used my same exact pay, and I think I've sent it to probably at least 10, 15 people on SDL that have asked me. And it's always worked. It's always kept me. The one thing I've never had to do based on mine, as you know, I'm a numbers guy. I've never had to adjust my pay plans. And that's the biggest thing that I always feared, is when a manager comes in to adjust a pay plan, the staff never, I don't care if you're adjusting it to the betterment of that staff, it's always a negative experience, right? Always. So the less amount, and I've got stores that people, they love changing their pay plan every quarter, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. Because it just gets people demotivated, because every single time they're worrying about
group. Anyways, sorry, Ray.
No, I don't think so. But I can tell you, I have one store that has 24 different characters that they base their pay plans off of.
Oh my God. So here's the deal. When you have sales, all right, and it came up here, whether you want to pay in sales or gross. The reason we pay off of sales, and in my head, this is how I justify it. I love what you said about the advisors having a higher percentage and what that means to them mentally and that sort of thing. However, advisors can't control gross profit to a degree. They can't control the cost of the technician. They can't control the cost of the part, right? So I always thought that sales was better. And if you pay off of sales, like Ray said, you sell tires. What is the motivation to sell tires, wipers, those sort of things? Where's AJ? he should be out here. If you want to sell wipers, whatever, where is the motivation if you're paying off a gross profit on tires? Because what do you make on tires?
See, those could be the performance bonuses, right? So that way we have to have a certain penetration of tires that we want on there, certain penetration of alignments that we want on there. And you rotate that and you get and you continue that, because once they start to continue to learn how to sell that, it just becomes natural. Right? It becomes natural to be able to sell it. And you have to display. Well, that's part of this conversation I want to hear from other people.
For sure.
Do you guys keep, who out there believes that you should keep the pay plans private and the performance of your advisors private, right? Instead of displaying them out there for everybody to their, how many tires they sold, their penetration of tires, their penetration of alignments, all that stuff.
Oh no, the performance of the pay plan? No, I mean, your performance is your performance. It's open field, especially in advisors. You know, there's stores that do techs differently. You know, the technicians don't want their hours booked, you know, put on a board and all that bullshit.
I still think they should.
If I was a tech, I wouldn't have a problem with it because it would motivate me.
But why would you have it? Why would you as an advisor though?
Well, no, but that's what I'm saying. As an advisor, for sure, I want to do it because I want to show, hey, this is how this can be done, right? This is the bar. I was brought up to where you take the highest performing advisor and he sets the bar.
Well, okay, I can agree with you on that, but displaying the actual dollar amount, if everybody's on the same pay plan, why does it matter what everybody knows what they made? Right? Because if you're never changing the pay plan from the express advisor all the way up to a main shop advisor, right? Because most people start off as express, and I want it to the way that they have a way to continue to evolve into that service advisor side. So they see when they start off as a service or express advisor, they might be making $4,000 a month, right? On that same exact pay plan, because the stuff that they're selling is a lot lower side of the gross profit side, right? And they're doing it in volume. They might be writing 30 tickets versus the 12 to 15 tickets that a normal advisor is with that same volume. So now, in order for them, the best of the ones here in the express end up moving into the main shop, which with the same pay plan now could potentially double, triple their pay.
So, all right, there's a lot of questions for you, Jim. You have blown this shit up, all right, with some of your comments now. And here, I'm going to want to hear from, and I'm calling you out. I'm going to want to hear from Lamont. I'm going to want to hear from Daryl, Alec, TC. You've been really, really quiet. This is like your third show. So but you're going to have to be involved here, son. And then of course the Titan's going to chime in at some point because you fucking can't stop it, right? And then Ray Hernandez. So guys, put your hands up. Want to hear from you. But Jim, why don't you address some things here, some of these questions? And I was just notified that my audio sucks. Sorry, Gabe.
So I'll tell you, Frank has on here, what's the percent that I pay my advisors? Again, it's their standard typically is 8%. That's their base. They get 8% of their labor gross, and then they could get up to 13% of their labor gross, individual labor gross, based on, a maximum of 3 different metrics that I usually put in there.
So Josh, is this better? Just shoot me a text there.
That is better.
Much better. All right. Thank you, everybody. Josh, I appreciate you. It's a good thing that you're on today because nobody wants to hear what I'm saying anyways. Alec, let's go.
So I've been on Jim's pay plan and I killed it.
and that is exactly why he became a manager, right?
Oh boy, here's some bullshit on here. All right, Alec, if I would have known this tidbit, I wouldn't have asked you to speak. I'll tell you that.
But the group I work with does a different pay plan, and so I just wanted to toss that out there. Yeah, so my guys all have a salary instead of a draw, which I strongly agree with. The part that's different is that we pay on sales, and the minimum sales is 4.5%. for parts and labor, and it goes to 6.5%. And what changes the metric is the gross profitability of the fixed ops department.
So you pay that's a hefty percentage off of sales, 6.5%.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
what
I want to write for you. I'll go write for you right now.
I got a desk.
Well, wait, Joe. What brand of store? It might be a Peugeot store and have
Yeah,
four
no
customers.
shit. I actually, he's got Kia, and I know a thing or two about
It's
Kias.
actually, the thing is, it's at every single one of our stores. It's the same paint plan, and it doesn't change depending on the brand. Whether you're at a Ford store, a Chevy store, Honda, everybody's on the same pay plan. The only thing that you can get changed is if you're bringing a different person on. If you want to give them a guarantee during the first pay period, the owner has to approve it first, and he limits the amount of months and what the guarantee will be. Other than that, everybody's on the same board, on the same footing. The only thing that, KSI or CSE, that's the one thing that the store can change, and they can put 1 monthly bonus on a pay plan that you can rotate in and out, that the GM agrees with.
And let's be fair. I believe that every pay plan, no matter what, should always have a kicker, Alec, as you know, for CSI, right? CSI or any type of customer retention based deal, that's a mandatory. It should be on there. And is there, I'm not a big believer of the negative style pay plan to where you lose money. I don't believe
Damn, I've been on that one.
Yep. And I just don't believe that should ever happen, because there should never be a negative consequence to it, because it should be the manager's or the leader's job to focus on getting them up versus negatively consequenting them.
Well, before we get to Daryl, I want to touch base on two things. One, how many people, just by in the chat, how many people have a salary versus how many people have a draw in their advisor pay plans? Secondly, that negative component of the pay plan is scary to me. I don't like it. And I've spoken with people that have it in there. If you don't hit CSI, we take $600 away. Well, if you don't hit CSI, you don't have a job.
Correct.
Right. I mean, I've literally fired 3 advisors in the last several weeks because they didn't hit CSI. And I mean, most of them were in the same store, but you got to make sure that you manage it. And I think that penalty, I don't want somebody working their pay plan out of fear. I want them working it for an advantage, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And typically, Joe, you're right, because what happens is again, if you negatively impact that pay plan, that's the leader making the pay plan manage the people versus them leading the people and doing it, right?
Well, yeah. And here, if you have a negative situation if you're going to lose $600-700, $500, whatever it is, that becomes the primary motivator for that pay plan. It's not about making money at that point. It's about doing, getting that CSI, and it changes the focus of the pay plan, which is fine if you want to pay your folks, more off the CSI than you do on this. That's fine. That's a business decision. But I think with a negative consequence like that, I agree with you. I don't like it. Never have. Daryl, let's go. The Wolf.
Good morning,
Wolf of NOLA. Right.
So at my store, we keep our pay plans pretty basic. We focus on hours sold from our advisors. We focus on parts sold by our advisors, and then we focus on CSI. So pretty much it's my job to fill our shop up with our available inventory to sell. And then our advisors, they got a pretty good they get $8.50 per hour sold. It's full commission, no salary, no draw. And then they get 5% on parts sold as well. Part sales, not gross. And then to top it off, we give them a $1,000 bonus for CSI. So pretty much to put on a scale, I guess my weakest advisor would probably make about 60 grand a year. My top advisor probably 130. Nice. So it's a full commission job. So
your top advisor could more than double your weakest advisor. I like that.
Correct. And it's full
Good
commission.
For you. Yeah.
And it's motivating. It's pretty simple. It gets the job done for us, man. I like Jim. You have a pretty interesting pay plan. I'm thinking about putting a little more kicker bonuses in there. I mean, you said so you start with gross at 8%, and then you work your way up to the 13%. That might be a good idea as far as selling like menu sale items and stuff like that. It's a pretty good idea, brother.
So Daryl, how do you, paying off of that, so you got to remember, again, I go back to, there's 2 sides of these pay plans, right? 2 sides. One, the business, it always has to make sense for the business, right? On that side. So what is your advisor comp compared to your gross? Are you always within that percentage on benchmark, or do you not monitor that and look at that?
My comp is a little higher. We're probably around a 15 to I want to say 17%.
Okay.
Oof.
Okay.
Okay. That's high.
Yeah, but we compensate with other things as well. So like I don't have that many porters. Our cashier expense isn't too high.
Yep. Okay. Yep.
So we monitor that and we track it. We hold pretty good retention. Bottom line.
And I'm glad you said that you put other things, for that. So the advisors, they handle the cashier list, right? So those are the things in the beginning, if you remember when I said a standard 13%. Now that could be jumped and raised based on your store, because if your clerical compensation is supposed to be at 3% and you're only down to 1% because you want to pay the advisors because they're doing some administrative roles or clerical roles, like with the active, greetings, the active, payouts and stuff like that, closing of the tickets, then maybe I believe that you could jump that up to like Daryl has that. So now at that point, I'm fine with that, right? Because that's going to also entice you to get the best of the best, right? To be able to go and grab somebody from a store that's only making $5,000 and doesn't have that ability to get to that 130 like you have, Daryl. I think that's a motivating factor there.
And you're right. That's what it's all about, is trying to, recruit the best. And in order to recruit the best of the best, you have to be able to pay.
Correct.
Yeah, and actually, that's what Frank Rossi in the chat just said. If you don't pay your people, being an advisor is not an easy job. You got to pay, right? You got to pay, and if you don't pay them, you're not going to recruit anybody, because it becomes a shit show. So I get 100% of what you're saying. Lamont, I'm interested to hear what you have to say, and then we're going to go to Bob, who needs to leave because he's got a volleyball tourney he needs to attend. But Lamont, let's go.
Good morning, gentlemen.
By the way, I forgot to introduce. Lamont is now Hollywood.
Yeah.
Lamont is now Hollywood. You see him walking, you see him rolling in that suit in the lane there. He's just motherfucker's got it dialed up, and he's like, hey, and he did one of these, in the commercial. I'm like, are you serious, Lamont? He's like, hey. All right.
Yes.
Anyway, go ahead, Hollywood.
The suit has been a nice fit. I started, of course, first day wearing a suit.
Good for you.
Now I look around, 3 of my 6 advisors now wear suits every day.
Well, it's a fucking Benz store, dude.
Absolutely.
You're not at a fucking Isuzu store.
Absolutely. So on the pay plan, very simple. Our advisors get $15.50 an hour. They get 5% on gross parts and labor, an additional 2% on CSI. So a percent on individual and another percent on group. And everybody pretty much knows what everybody's making. The numbers are based off CDK. So I have a couple of advisors. I have one top advisor. He kills it every single month. And I have 2 advisors that purposely chase him. They want to be on top. So it's simple, easy to figure out, and everybody's involved.
So when you say it's simple, how many components are there?
3.
It's
hourly, percentage, and CSI. And I say it's simple because I'm listening to some of the pay plans that you guys that are out there, and some that I've read about. I was like, if it gets to a point where an advisor can't understand his pay plan, or he takes too much time trying to figure it out, I think he loses interest in trying to really capitalize on it.
Would anybody consider paying your people hourly? I'm sorry, I'm channeling my inner Eric here.
Definitely not.
Definitely not.
All right, I wouldn't either, by the way. I would never do that.
When you say pay hourly, though, are you talking about paying them hourly plus like bonuses, or just a straight, hey, like this is your hourly way?
Here, either way, I wouldn't do it. But
internal writers, I do.
Do you now? You pay your internal writers that? Okay, now there's no performance bonus to be an internal writer? Why wouldn't you, like Cars Turn or something like that?
So here's the one thing: if any service manager's on here, you're going to want to pay your internal advisors a high percentage so they upsell the shit out of the used car managers, right?
Yeah, Yes. Yes.
Hey, we got a slow month going. Internal advisor, get that going. Let's go.
All right. So
That's when I
Aaron,
booked the tickets.
Aaron,
Yeah.
I think it's Aaron Bratcher just said that when he started at his store, the advisors were hourly and the techs were too. Now, I mean, a tech and an advisor are pretty different, but it's what made me start thinking about it. Russell Wickham was saying that, these advisors, he thought tech pay plans are rough. Hey, we pay an advisor is really a flat rate position. It's just the flat rate is noted differently. It's measured
100%.
differently. Bob Charbonneau, go ahead, man.
Yeah, two things I have to add on that hourly. Years ago, when I had 374 stores, I'm at that time when I was running stores, I paid guys hourly. It was in South San Francisco, and that was the way that it was done. And I thought it worked really good. You got to keep your guys motivated. But then, I started looking at it when I had all these stores across the country. I thought, you know what? I'm going to switch the ones from hourly to commission in like 25 stores and do the opposite, where these guys were really complaining in this one region that they wanted to be paid hourly, switch them to hourly for 90 days, depending on how they performed. I got to tell you, when I switched the guys to hourly, their performance was fantastic. It didn't drop, didn't do anything first month. Second month, it dropped about 20%.
Yeah.
Third month, it was over 30% less that those guys were doing. And I said, okay, you know what? Not everybody's good at motivating people and driving them to do their very best. But when it's how you get paid, you learn that if you're going to do your job so that you make the money you should be making. And just one other thing I wanted to add is whatever your pay plan is, when it comes to CSI bonuses, you should have your pay plan like there's no CSI bonus. So that's what they should get paid. Now, if they have great CSI, they make a bonus. If they don't have good CSI, they get a penalty. And what happens is they're going to win and lose sometimes, but I had the conversation with a lot of people. Okay, when you look at it, I go, okay, you have made $6,000 more in 3/4 of this year in bonus. And now you want to quit because you got hit for $300 last month. So you want to take the bonus away, which would be the $6,000 also that you won. Or do you want to make sure that you don't fall into that category anymore? But they have to, you can't make it where they have to have CSI in order to make what a service advisor should make.
I'm sorry, Bob. Robert Sebastian just threw something out about saving the whales or some bullshit in the chat. I don't know what the hell. I mean, just totally threw me off. But fuck Robert. Anyhow, thanks for that, Bob. I agree that hourly, paying hourly is I would never do it. It's gonna drop, and it might not drop that first month, but that second, third month, it's gonna drop. So there's, absolutely no question on that. Jim,
just one more thing real quick.
Yeah, Bob, go ahead.
I've run into issues where when you have like a manufacturer that say has had a lot of transmission problems. So you got warranty transmissions that are getting replaced. The parts are $4,000 and the labor, is 2.5 hours to swap it out. Now, when you calculate that, you just lost your ass. If you're paying 6% commission or whatever percent it is on you just paid like $350, and you only took in, $280. And so, something doesn't calculate on those. So the stores that I've worked closely with, we've made some kind of adjustment for that. I don't know what it would be for everybody, but, you have to earn your money. You can't just have it given to you, or where you're losing money on certain things that you do.
Agreed.
That's it.
So, yep. Thank you, Rob. So let me ask anybody out there, just throw this out there. Has anybody paid a bonus, like not, I won't call it a bonus, but an incentive? So I have a group that it's about 8 stores that the first time I've ever seen this. So not only on their normal pay plan do they have their incentives, their bonuses, but they have a quarterly incentive structure that pays basically incentivizes the advisor for time off. So if they can earn extra days on top of their PTO that get paid at their highest average rate that they have paid based on their bonuses, and they get extra days off. Has anybody ever thought about that or done that? Just want to throw that out there and get your guys' take on that. Because it is the new, we all know this, right? We say that the younger staffs that we get in, money isn't such the motivating factor anymore as much as it is time off, social time, all that kind of stuff. So has anybody ever out there that's on here experimented with that? Or what's your thoughts on it? Ray, you were shaking your head. What do you think?
Sorry, I don't want to be disrespectful. I was laughing at Robert
No.
Sebastian's comment. I didn't hear your question.
Because I agree. I mean, sometimes. So the question basically is I've had a group that I've never seen this before. They have a quarterly incentive out there that the advisors can earn extra time off. So because they have a lot of younger staff, that it's really important for them when they did their employee survey, the time off requirement was more important than the actual money side. So I think that this might be something that might be starting to hit and kind of go through. So have you, with all the stores that you've been at and seen, have you had anything like that?
Yeah, we've had all different kinds of, it's a store by store type of deal where the reality is, depending on your store, your location, etc., that time off in certain parts of the country to go hunting is a real big deal, right? There's all kinds of different deals. There's every technician in the shop thinks that they're getting dispatched too fairly. So I've seen stores run a promo where whoever has the highest X will be able to dispatch for a day a week. So they get the flavor for dispatching. And then usually once they get that, they don't want to win that fucking contest anymore. So there's all kinds of things like that go on, but you have to be very geographically sensitive, right? And so, we're talking about pay plans. I think they should all start with a budget first and foremost. 13.5% is a number, right? So I always tell people pick a number. In some markets, though, you try and pay 13.5%, you're not going to have anybody.
Yes,
and
correct.
When I talk about paying internal advisors hourly, 2 things. Number one, that helps me drive down the overall percentage so that I can pay the high performers 17, 18, 19, 20. I don't care if I'm paying the top performers 25%. The reality is, what are they driving? What are they generating? And if I could use an internal pay plan to help bring the overall percentage in line, then that's what I'm going to do.
Good. I agree 100%. Robert?
Hey guys, that definitely was a joke on that whale, but you can have a
but
purpose.
It was funny. I mean, you got me. It was funny.
Well, no, I mean, that just has to do with a purpose. Sometimes you can put out a thing where you're raising funds for a charity, and that can motivate a team. If you've got a bunch of guys who care about the people that served in the military, and you want to raise funds for wounded veterans, I mean, that'll motivate them. Or recently, I've seen a service manager for Lithia. He had annual retention bonuses he was sending out. I don't know if you guys saw that post on LinkedIn. He was sending out checks for, I don't know, whatever amount of money per hour's turn for his technicians, but you can do the same for advisors. Hand out retention bonuses for every hour sold. It gathers up an amount of money. So it's checks for $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, depending on their current pay scale and their performance. So that's a pretty cool deal right there. But that whale thing was a joke. But on the other hand, you can have temporary bonuses that are for a charitable cause, and there are dealers that have commitments to certain charities. Like in my town, there's one who sends 10 families a year to Disney. So if you hit certain numbers, you can send 11 families to Disney because a certain percentage of your sales go towards that charity. So that kind of motivates the team to do something good for underprivileged kids, for kids that deal with families that deal with terminal diseases. In this case, they send families who have kids with terminal illnesses for free, all expenses paid, to Disney. So it's one of those things, the intrinsic motivation. But obviously, that's not going to be the main motivation. It's just one element that can galvanize the group.
I like the I really like the idea of something in there for and something extra, right? Like Jim said, that the day off, or to your save the whale thing, is as ridiculous as it is, it literally puts a little something different in the pay plan that might be of value. And I'm a firm believer, and I want to do this in our stores, in that that longevity bonus, or what, retention bonus, whatever that is. And because everybody talks about that for technicians, for every hour you book, we're going to put $1 into kitty, and you get that back at on December 1st, or whatever that is. Or if you've been with us for 5 years, you get $1.15. If you've been with us for 20 years, it's $1.25. Whatever it is, you get that back. Nobody talks about doing that for advisors. AutoNation did that years ago for advisors, managers, everybody. And I think that's a brilliant thing. And I'll be honest, I've forgotten about it. And I think that should be worked into a pay plan, because we all struggle with retention. Everybody struggles with retention, and pay plans are a big part of struggling with that retention. So, Brian Moore, you're, as far as I can tell, you're the only advisor on this panel at this point in time. And I know from personal experience with you, you've had 1 or 2 pay plans in your day.
Just a couple.
So what are your thoughts on this? I want to hear it from the horse's mouth here. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, so the first dealership I worked at, I was at for a pretty decent amount of time, and they paid on total sale. No salary, no draw, no nothing. It was a flat 5% customer pay, warranty, parts and labor, and you got paid weekly instead of monthly.
It's a good point, Brian, because I was going to ask that question on here. A big thing is the carrot faster, right? These stores that pay out the monthly bonus, the monthly bonus where they have a small salary and so on throughout the month, and then a monthly bonus, I think is way too long. The advisors have to have that way before that. If you can pay weekly, and everybody's dealers are different, right? But if you can pay weekly, I would suggest paying weekly and paying out as often as possible.
So how much of a hassle would that? Has anybody ever paid that as a manager? Has anybody ever paid their commissions weekly? I have not.
All the time.
How fucking hazardous is that?
Well, no, let me actually, Joe, let me say that. See, what ends up happening when you pay them weekly is it entices them to continue the closing of tickets and making sure that things are up to date. Because otherwise what happens is, all advisors, you can pay them bi-weekly or you can pay them monthly, but then you will have that flux of closed tickets at the end of the pay period so it keeps that constant flow going.
He's not wrong about that, because it always seemed like I always watched all the managers on LinkedIn, and everybody's like, end of month this, end of month that, blah, blah, blah. And I always used to walk around like, what the hell is all this mayhem with end of month? Like, I'm closing my tickets as like, I want customers to pick up their cars because I want to close tickets because I want to be paid for that week. And then as weeks go, you know what I mean? It's, I understand it's kind of the same concept, but it's like, I never had that mayhem, because it was always like, I mean, and with the store I was at, it was never like all this extra stuff. It was like, there was no bonus for CSI. There was no this, there was no that. It was like, okay, so it was a Nissan store. So I would, you would just get paid Nissan's bonus if you hit the numbers or if you didn't. But there was no spiffs. There was no nothing. You just paid on total sale of everything that you did.
I love it, but I don't know if it's doable. Titan, you made a comment in there, and I'm sure you're in a position where you can't talk because you're fondling Mickey's ears or some bullshit. But what put in the chat what you honestly think, because you said, "Oh, weekly commission." What do you mean by that? Because I'm interested in your opinion. Daryl, you said
let's go.
Can you talk now? Let's go, fucker. Come on.
All right, so this is really obviously a great point and a great conversation, but I think the reality is, in the service department anywhere in the country, it's about production. So why are we paying people on gross? And then then think about what's happened with our labor rate increases over the last 3.5 or 4 years. Why would we give our advisors, and utilizing tools like Time AI, right, where you're looking at competitive sets and raising your prices on services sold and driving your effective labor rate up and doing all these things that really the advisors have no fucking control of, but we're giving them 10, 12, 15, 18% raises because we raised our labor rate or raised our sell rate to what's competitive in our market, right? It just doesn't make sense anymore. Techs are paid on flat rate. Advisors should be paid on flat rate, and they should be paid weekly. Why would I hold their commission for a month? Because the dealer needs the money or the employee needs the money. So the pay plan that Daryl talked about is a pay plan that I built for our group, at least my store. And it's not complicated from my perspective, but we pay a $8.50 per hour sold. 5% of customer pay part sales. They have a tire bonus that's worth $300 at a minimum. You must sell 30 tires, and then you get paid $10 a tire after that. So I don't care if they make $1,000 a month selling tires. Good job. I'll take the retention. And then obviously there's a CSI component to it. So what I did was paid them $50 a survey returned. That meant that equaled the top tier of the standard metric. So like $8.95 to and up on a survey was worth $50 a month. It was capped at $1,000. But in addition to that, they got paid another $500 for the department score being above the region. But in order to get that money, I had KPI requirements. They had to have 80% or better online quote utilization. They had to have 70% menu presentation. They had to have minimum of 10 return surveys. And they had to have a minimum DRSG usage of 30 per month, which is it's chump change if you're doing the job that they're supposed to do. We need to incentivize them for doing the things they're supposed to do, not pay them gross on shit they're not supposed to do. Now, I'm not meaning any disrespect when I say this, but Ryan is one of the craftiest dudes I know and really good as an advisor. He's getting really good as a fixed ops director too. But that motherfucker was never getting off his fat ass to go sell an air filter in the waiting room when he could take.
I mean, no disrespect by this.
Well, no, let me finish this.
With all due respect, Ryan's a piece of shit. However,
no, let me finish. So if it was the choice between writing up the 2012 Camry that just pulled in the drive, or go sell an air filter to make 12 cents from his commission.
Right.
Like, he didn't give a fuck about the air filter. You know what? I do, because it's about taking care of the customer. So he's going to dodge the air filter and go run to the 2012 and fight one of his counterparts on the way to get to the door. And that guy's got a bloody lip. And Brian's like, hey, good morning. Welcome. We need to get away from all the bullshit that we've been doing for the last 50 fucking years, because it doesn't work. Look at the retention metrics at every fucking store on here. Let me just tell you this. So I think Bob brought up a good point. It's been a while, but he did. Why would we pay a commission percentage on a fucking recall that had a $4,000 or $2,000 part? Doesn't make any sense. So if the tech got paid 2.5 hours, then so did the advisor. If the tech got paid 5 hours, so did the advisor. And I believe that an advisor should be able to sell 600 hours a month. And I think that's the floor, not the ceiling, because I've seen plenty of advisors turn 750, 850, 900,000 hours. And Ryan was one of them. He was fucking good. So if we match the pay plan to the technician, then there's harmony and synergies, right? And so I pay them their commission every Friday. What do they sell for the week? We just pay them. And then the 15th check is just the CSI portion of that, and tires.
so let's ask this. What's the variable side? How do they pay? Some stores pay weekly. They every payroll they get their commissions and shit like that. We don't do that on the fixed side, and I like that. The more I'm thinking about it.
Don't say we.
Well, what do you pay your advisors right now, Mike?
I don't have any.
Okay, so I'm saying we, all right, motherfucker.
And really don't bring up the variable side. They're just as fucked up. And
no, but that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. They don't do it 100% correct either. So I think we should lead on that. And I've never really thought about paying out weekly. On a serious note, I've never done it. But I what you said, aside from your just categorical fucking insults, it was fantastic. Jim, what are your thoughts on fucking Donald Duck here?
So my first initial thoughts are I feel really bad for Mickey and Minnie Mouse.
Right?
Today with
I mean, could you imagine at the pancake line
with Mike at Disney today? I feel bad for those two because they're not going to ever experience anything like Mike, again.
Mike Barrich would make Mickey take off his helmet. To take off that mask and Barrich would be like, motherfucker, I'm going to fight you.
See, what you can't see is that Titan's in line for the teacups right now, and he was throwing insults at Ryan Baum.
So what I do want to hit on one thing that Mike said, though, that in between all of that, Ryan Baum beating, I think that the thing that I took away is when he said that, look, no matter what the pay plan is, there's certain KPI requirements they have to hit to do that. So in some side, I agree with Mike that we have to change, right? Because we can't keep doing everything the same way, because we all talk about that. We talk about, hey, we can't stay the same way. So what if you came out with an advisor pay plan that said, hey, you know what, here's what I'm going to pay my advisors. Let's call Daryl, your top advisor is 130, right? So I'm paying $130,000 a year, divide that up by how many pay periods you have, whatever that is. And then, here's the requirements. Here's the minimum standard I need you to be at. And every one of them that you don't hit, then obviously that drops your salary, right? So the salary is 130. What if it was something like that, to where this is what it is, and then it comes back? Now that goes back to that demotivating factor, right? With the negatives. However, though, you show them that, hey, I'm going to pay you $130,000, right? Where are you going to make that anywhere else? But here are the standards, CSI, the KPI, whatever those KPI you want. These are the standards you have to be at. And if you're, for example, I'll just use an easy number, right? ELR, dollar per ticket, whatever it is. And I don't like paying off that stuff. But if you had $1 per ticket, that bonus was $100 per ticket, and they were at $80, well, they got 80% of whatever that portion of that salary was on that side of it, right? On whatever their bonus. What about something like that? I've never done it, but what's your thoughts, Joe?
I like it. I'm rolling in this because, guys like Tully, they always talk about flat rate hours. And, in the grand scheme of things, keeping your comp, within percentage, to Mike's point, isn't going to, if you're paying off of sales, it's not going to work. Now that is an advantage of paying off a gross, right? Correct. But because you're not automatically given that raise. However, I like the idea of changing the industry and the pay plans to what you said. I'm sorry, man. I'm actually busy thinking here.
When you say that you're not automatically, the one thing I will push back on, when you say that paying off gross, you're giving them the automatic raises when we do that. But what else is going up? The cost of the labor is going up. The cost of the parts are going up.
You're right.
That stuff continues to go up. So that's going to continue.
The cost of living is going up.
Correct. You know what I mean? So all that stuff is really happening too in one side, if you really think about it. So,
that's fucking bullshit, Jim. It's bullshit. So when you say that, it's disproportionate. You've raised your door rate, you've raised your effective labor rate, you've raised your warranty rates way past what you're paying your technicians. Like, what's the labor rate in your neck of the words?
If that's the case, then why hasn't the gross profit percentage in the industry risen then that much? If that's the case.
Because we can't fucking keep it. It talks about it's based on work mix that comes into your store, competitive maintenance or repair. So correct. The reality is that the labor rates have far exceeded, the increase in labor rates has far exceeded the tech raises associated with that. So I don't buy it at all. At the end of the day, listen, we have to sell time. That's the inventory and correct. Service. Yep. And not only So the other thing I didn't add in there is that I paid the advisors on spiffs for commodity sales, and we dominated that because Ryan would get off his fucking fat ass and go sell an air filter for $3 and come back and be like, "Cha-ching! I got the $3, boss. Good job."
Ryan, are you here? I mean, Ryan, would you?
Yeah, I'm just taking it on the chin over here today. It's a good one, but
I love you, brother.
I know.
Let me just
if I didn't work underneath him, I'd fucking blast. But yeah, I mean, he's
It's a weird way to show your love.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
listen, let me just tell you this. I pay the parts guys on the same formula. They get paid on hours sold.
Oh, I agree. I like that. That's actually good.
So Richard Mueller says in the chat, seeing a bunch of ruthless motherfuckers in here, how many chances do you give a service advisor before you cut them loose? How do you deal with habitually bad CSI customers? Hey,
I'll answer that.
Okay, sure you will. Go ahead.
Tighten the fucking noose. If they can't produce, they don't belong on your team.
Yeah,
Why
and that was
would we accept less than average.
I agree.
Like, cut those fucking people. If they can't do what I want them to do for the benefit of the store and the benefit of the company and the customer, most importantly, why do I want them on my team?
I am no longer interested in advisors that refuse to deliver quality service.
Correct.
I'm not. I am no longer interested. I got out of that game. I'm not doing it. I'm not tolerating it. I'm fucking done. Ray Hernandez, shoot. We've got 3 minutes left.
So there's lots of stuff on here that I took some notes on, but there's several different things. But I'm okay with the advisors making an increase when I get a win or I do a rate increase and so on and so forth. So, I use the warranty rate increase, and the reality is these are all different opinions, right? None of us are right or wrong. Some of us believe we're right more than others, but
I disagree.
I figured you would. That's okay. Our tech rates. Somebody said the rates have not kept pace with technician raises. I disagree. In our company, our technician rates of pay have increased as a percentage much higher than our door rates have increased. And so, we talk about advisor comp. Well, I'm not going to give them a raise if you get a warranty rate increase. Well, who the fuck sold the things that were required to get the rate increase in the first place? Right. So at the end of the day, if they're getting a raise because you raise your rates, that doesn't make that plan bad. I agree. Paying on hours is a great way to pay your advisors. But the reality is, how do you go ahead and adjust that rate, that per hour rate, when your door rate goes up? It's the same difference. You're just trying to hold your advisors back. And at the end of the day, that ongoing, hey, you sell more, you'll make more. 5 years later, you sell the same, you make the same. Try that from 2019 to 2024. The cost of a dozen eggs went up 5-fold, right? So you're going to hold your people at a certain dollar amount. That doesn't work. And, we were involved with several other discussions. I heard somebody say, well, my low performing advisor makes $3,000 a month. What? That's just above the fucking poverty line. So if you got advisors that are okay with that kind of money, you should have been coaching them out a long time ago. That makes no sense to me. And the last point I'll make is on paying weekly, buddy, if you can make that shit happen, you're going from 12 month-end closes to 52 month-end closes. Yep. That works. My experience with that is it's been like adding an entire month to the year.
Yeah, agreed.
As far as a total. So it works for you. Everything's situational, and you got to make sure that you're starting with a budget for your pay plans and backing into what makes the most sense. And so when I use an hourly internal advisor, I'll use that internal advisor to back down that percentage that the high performers are making to manage the whole percentage, if that makes sense.
Jim.
So I'm gonna go on that Save the Whales deal. So my 8-year-old daughter and my wife went to San Diego Zoo, and they came back with these things for me, right?
Save the chubby
unicorn. So this is something that's made me sad and happy at the same time. Am I an actual unicorn and unique? Yes, but I'm sad because are they calling me fat?
Yeah, they are. They are indeed.
You know what I mean?
They're calling you fat.
Which one is it? It's my family, so that's pretty scary.
So, all right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. And I do want to say this, though. As always, do something tomorrow. Do something. You heard a lot of ideas on here. And I've actually heard some ideas that have significantly made me change the way I'm thinking, or historically been thinking. take what you do on Service Drive Live and put it into effect. Take one thing and put it into effect Monday morning. We are about actionable items. We are about real items. When I first started this show with Eric, we said we are real people in real time in real stores. And you know what? All of you are the same thing. Whether you're a vendor, whether you're a trainer, a coach, or a manager, or an advisor, tech, you are in a real store. So listen to what happens on the show and do something with it in real time. Everybody, I appreciate it, and I appreciate all your support. We'll talk to y'all later. Hey, Jim, hang out for a sec, will you?
Absolutely.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Happy
Happy Thanksgiving. Yes.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Take care.
See you later.
Ciao, everyone.
All right, motherfuckers. Let's just break this down for a second. Okay.
First of all, you're a fucking douchebag for fucking ranking on that poor bastard like that. Okay. I mean, what's the
said
matter
no
with
disrespect.
you did say it. I don't mean any disrespect, but Ryan, you're a lazy piece of shit.
I never said that. No,
you did. You did.
Exact words.
I never said
You
that.
said lazy, fat, lazy piece of shit.
Hey, Joe,
said
stop
fat
the recording.
ass.
I gotta stop this recording right now.
Stop the
because
recording. We don't need this on. Yeah.
You are all fucking insane here.
Come on, just for a second. Humor me.